this is Mr. Music Norman Knight. Today on Solid Gold Scrapbook, the Pop Music Almanac salutes Frank Castelluccio, better known as Frankie Valli, who celebrates a birthday on May 3rd. We'll hear Frankie's biggest hits with the Four Seasons like Big Girls Don't Cry, Walk Like a Man, and Dawn Go Away. And we'll also hear Can't Take My Eyes Off You from his stellar solo career. Best of all, we'll be joined in our salute by the birthday boy himself, Frankie Valli. This is Mr. Music Norman Knight saluting Frank Castelluccio, better known as Frankie Valli, famed lead voice of the Four Seasons, who celebrates a birthday this week. We'll hear his biggest hit singles with and without the seasons like Big Girls Don't Cry and Can't Take My Eyes Off You. Best of all, we'll be joined by Frankie himself on the United Stations Radio Network. Frankie Valli was born on May 3rd, 1937 in Newark, New Jersey, and developed an early interest in music. In fact, by the age of 16, he released his first single on the tiny Corona record label, but it was not a success. 2 years later, in 1955, he tried his luck at Mercury Records, but they were too busy with the Platters to properly promote his record. His first taste of success came when he formed a group called the Four Lovers, which was the nucleus for the Four Seasons. This group signed with RCA Victor Records and cracked the top 100 with an Otis Blackwell composition entitled You're the Apple of My Eye. But RCA's focus at the time was Elvis Presley, and the Four Lovers were quickly forgotten. In 1962, the group became the Four Seasons and hooked up with producer Bob Crew.
He signed us to a record deal. We kind of did background on most of his productions for the first couple of years. And then in 62, we finally went to him and said, hey, Bob, you know, we don't want to continue to do backgrounds. Are you going to record us or not? And we kind of forced him into recording us at that particular time. And we recorded Sherry.
Sherry, Sherry, baby, Sherry, Sherry, baby.
On a birthday salute to Frankie Valli, that's Sherry, a chart topper in the fall of 1962, which became the first of an amazing string of hits for the Four Seasons. Bob Gaudio, a singer-songwriter formerly of the Royal Teens, was added to the group as the fourth season, and he is responsible for most of the group's biggest hits. He'd written Sherry, and he is also responsible for this even bigger follow-up.
Big girls don't cry, big girls don't cry. Don't cry, big girls don't cry, big girls don't cry.
On a salute to Frankie Valli, who celebrates a birthday on the 3rd of May, that's Big Girls Don't Cry by the Four Seasons, the group's biggest of 5 career chart toppers, and a song used recently to promote a product called Baby Cakes. Early in 1963, Frankie's gimmicky falsetto was put to good use again on the group's 3rd consecutive chart topper. It was co-written by Bob Gaudio and producer Bob Crew.
Oh, how you tried to cut me down to sight.
On a salute to Frankie Valli, who celebrates a birthday this week, that's Walk Like a Man, the group's 3rd consecutive chart topper on the VJ label. The next biggie was a two-sided hit. The B-side, Marlena, got lots of airplay, but Candy Girl became the top 10 A-side.
I've been a-searching all this new wide world. Now finally I found my candy girl, candy girl. Candy girl, candy girl, candy.
From the summer of 1963, that's Candy Girl by the Four Seasons, featuring the near screech falsetto of the man in our birthday spotlight this hour, Frankie Valli. Up next, the British invade, but the Seasons are unaffected.
The pop music almanac, solid gold scrapbook, scrapbook.
This is Mr. Music Norman Knight resuming our salute to Frankie Valli, who celebrates a birthday on the 3rd of May. After a royalty dispute with VJ Records, the Four Seasons signed with Philips, a subsidiary of Mercury, which Frankie had recorded for unsuccessfully almost a decade earlier. VJ also lost the Beatles at this time and eventually folded. Speaking of the Beatles, they were giving most of the previously dominant American performers a hard time, but the Four Seasons story continued. Right off the bat on their new label, the Seasons made top 10 with this Bob Gaudio composition.
Pretty as a midsummer's morn, they call her dawn. Gone, go away, I'm no good for you. Gone, go away, I'm no good for you.
On a birthday salute to Frankie Valli, that's Dawn, Go Away, starting off a long string of Philips label hits in the early spring of 1964. The follow-up again teamed composer Bob Gaudio and producer Bob Crew for a top 10 hit entitled Ronnie, a nickname for Veronica.
I'll go on living and keep on forgiving because it's I still repeat it, Ronnie, 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 oh. Ronnie, 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 I'll go on living and keep on forgiving because you were my first love. I'll go on living and keep on forgiving because you were my first love. I'll go on living and keep on forgiving because you were my first love.
It's a birthday salute to Frankie Valli this hour, and that's his distinctive lead voice on Ronnie, a top 10 1964 hit on the Philips label. Song titles with girls' names like Ronnie, Sherry, and Dawn were very successful for the group, and then in the summer of 1967 came Mary Ann. On a salute to Frankie Valli, who has a birthday this week. That's Come On Mary Ann by the Four Seasons from the summer of 1967. When the group signed with Philips Records in late December back in 63, VJ still had enough material for 4 more singles, out of which Stay became the biggest.
Stay on just a little bit longer. Come on, come on, come on. Stay. Come on, stay.
That's the Four Seasons hit remake of a 1960 Maurice Williams and the Zodiac's chart topper entitled Stay, which we hope you'll do as we continue our Frankie Valli birthday salute in moments on Solid Gold Scrapbook.
Every time. Solid gold scrapbook.
This is Mr. Music Norman Knight continuing our birthday salute to Frankie Valli, lead singer of the Four Seasons. Frankie is a natural talent. His vocal technique was inborn rather than learned.
You know, the fallacy about singing and people who go to study voice is for the technical parts of studying voice or the technical parts of acting, it's very good to go and study. But no one can teach you how to phrase. There is no formula.
Bob Gaudio had the correct formula for writing Four Seasons material, however, and in the summer of 1964, Ragdoll sold well over 1 million copies. On a salute to Frankie Valli, who celebrates a birthday on the 3rd of May, that's Ragdoll, a million-selling chart topper from the summer of 1964, of which the flip side was the original Silence is Golden, a hit 3 years later for the Tremolos. Ragdoll was such a smash that the follow-up Save It For Me also became a top 10 entry.
Don't let your love go astray. Save it for me. Save it for me. Save it for me.
On a birthday salute to Frankie Valli, those are the Four Seasons with Save It For Me from the fall of 1964. While the Beatles and other British groups were steamrolling every American act in their path, the Four Seasons remained consistent. In fact, late in 1965, they had two big hits simultaneously. Don't Think Twice under the alias of The Wonder Who, and Let's Hang On as by the Four Seasons.
There ain't no good in our goodbye. True love takes a lot of trying. Oh, I'm crying.
Let's hang on to what we know.
Later, a hit again for Barry Manilow. That's the original, Let's Hang On by the Four Seasons, one of two big hits they had on the chart in the fall of 1965. Up next in our birthday salute to Frankie Valli, A Season of Change.
Solid gold standard. Solid gold standard.
This is Mr. Music Norman Knight, continuing our salute to Frankie Valli, who celebrates a birthday this week. Being born and raised in the big New Jersey city of Newark armed Frankie with some valuable street sense.
Having street sense is probably the most important education you can get in your whole life. There are no universities that teach that. There is no way that you can learn it except through experience. And depending on where you live, you live in the suburbs, it's a little different than when you live in the city.
Come the mid-60s, the group began relying less upon the compositions of Bob Gaudio and more upon a young songwriter named Sandy Linzer, who has this 1966 hit to his credit.
Working my way back to you, babe, with a burning love inside. Working my way back to you, babe, with a burning love inside. I'm working my way back to you, babe, and the happiness that thou hast tried. Working my way back to you, babe, with a burning love inside.
On a birthday salute to Frankie Valli, that's Working My Way Back to You from early in 1966, later becoming an even bigger hit for the Spinners. That song and Let's Hang On were both written by songwriter Sandy Linzer with assistance from arranger Denny Randell. These two teamed again for a hit in the early summer of 1966 called Opus 17.
I can see there ain't no room for me. I'll be strong. I'll try to carry on. Although you know it won't be easy when you're gone. I'll always think of you, the tender love we knew. But somehow I've been through. So don't you worry about me. I'll be strong. I'll try to carry on.
On a Frankie Valli birthday salute, those are the Four Seasons with Opus 17, which features some incredible chord modulations that only the three-octave range of Frankie Valli could convey. After a few more hits together, Frankie said bye-bye to the Four Seasons to attempt a solo career. Up next, Frankie's first solo hit on Solid Gold Scrapbook.
Solid gold scrapbook.
This is Mr. Music Norman Knight, continuing our salute to Frankie Valli, who celebrates a birthday on May 3rd. After leaving the Four Seasons, Frankie entered into a highly successful yet sporadic solo career. His first big hit came in the spring of 1967 with Can't Take My Eyes Off You, written by Bob Gaudio.
You're just too good to be true.
Don't bring me down on rails, baby. Now that I found you, stay.
Frankie Valli birthday salute. That's his first big solo hit, Can't Take My Eyes Off You from 1967. All eyes were back on Frankie Valli in the mid-'70s for a string of hits with and without the Four Seasons. Even after over 3.5 decades of recording, Frankie still finds it thrilling.
I like the creative challenge of making records. And I also like the challenge of reproducing those songs live and making them sound like a record. So, the challenge never goes away, so it keeps it incredibly interesting.
In the summer of 1967, Frankie followed up Can't Take My Eyes Off You with yet another Bob Gaudio masterpiece, I Make a Fool of Myself.
When I'm away from you, making a fool of myself. I want so much to be here inside me dying. Oh, I'm crying.
That's I Make a Fool of Myself by Frankie Valli from the summer of 1967, rounding out our birthday salute. Happy birthday, Frankie, from the United Stations Radio Network. That concludes our show for today, but I'd like to thank Frankie Valli for his recollections. Copyright 1989, the United Stations Radio Network Incorporated. No portion of this program may be reproduced without the express written consent of the copyright owner, all rights reserved. Solid Gold Scrapbook is produced for the United Stations by Ed Salomon. Writer and associate producer Bob Leschak. Technical director Peter Shamman. Technical assistance by Mary Jo Horowitz and Ray Kemp. I'm Mr. Music Norman Knight. Don't forget tomorrow's salute to the Beatles cover records. Rock on.